If you've ever binge-watched Netflix, chances are our next speaker had something to do with it. His mantra, to delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways, has launched him from being the former VP of Product at Netflix, to Chief Product Officer at Chegg, to SVP of Product at The Learning Company, and a producer at Electronic Arts. Here to share his secrets for satisfying your customers, please welcome Gibson Biddle.
I'm so excited to be here. I learned a new word today, akrasia. So now at 3 in the morning, when you watch the 13th episode of Black Mirror and it asks you, are you still there? It'll say, do you suffer from akrasia? How many of you are Netflix members? Cool. How many would give it a 9 or a 10 on a likely to recommend? Let's see it. How many would give it a 7 or 8? How many would give it a 0 to 6? Cool. Okay, that's a net promoter score of about 77, which is pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to take you back to the beginning of my career at Electronic Arts. This is 1991. I am older than dirt. These are all the letters that I opened and responded to from all the customers. This is my bid to be customer focused. And I looked at survey results. I did segmentation analysis. I even worked out the R-squared for predicting different features. And it wasn't quite as helpful as I hoped. And then I went on to build kids' software with Sesame Street. This is Elmo's preschool. I was maniacally focused on kids and their parents, working to delight them. And sold that startup to Mr. Wonderful of Shark Tank. He was the CEO of the Learning Company. And then we went on to sell it to Mattel. And then I met this gentleman. This is 2005. This is Reed Hastings. He's the CEO of Netflix. And this is very much the DVD era. Do you all know what a DVD is? Okay. And I was a candidate for VP of Product there. I got the job. And Reed really asked 2 questions. One, Gib, can you delight customers? And I said, dude, I built Elmo's preschool and Oregon Trails and Reader Rabbit, and again, showed my age. And then the second question is, do you believe in consumer science? Now, luckily, I knew what he meant, because I had asked him, what did he hope his legacy would be? And it wasn't, I want to create internet TV, or I want to encourage you to binge watch late at night. It was this idea of consumer science. So unlike Steve Jobs, he said to me, I don't have an inherent understanding of what will delight customers in the future, but we can create these systems where we can learn and test and learn and create an environment of let's test it to develop remarkable consumer insight. And so that was the legacy, and I was intrigued. So today, I want to take you on 2 journeys. This is what Netflix looked like in 1999. Okay, any designers in the house, Pedro, this sucks, correct? All startups suck at the beginning, and when I did a screen capture last night, that looks better. And the other part of this journey is from, I describe it as customer focus early in my career, where I was intent on listening to customers, and then I learned to test and learn via consumer science. I was very focused early in my career on how I was doing it against competitors, and in this obsession, it was mainly about inventing and pioneering new things, like streaming. And then early in my career, I was trying to balance satisfaction and margin, and then I moved on to delight. How do you double down on delight to create these hard-to-copy advantages that eventually you know you're going to make quite a bit of money? So there's 3 chapters to this story for me. The first is some of the nuance in delighting customers. It's a balancing act. The second is I'm going to talk about consumer science at Netflix in the area of personalization. How did Netflix create a highly personalized experience that's intent is to connect you with movies that you'll love? And then Netflix needs your help. It wants to know at the end of those first 30 days for a new customer, should the company send you a free trial reminder, letting you know that you're going to start paying. So we're going to do that case at the end, applying some of these theories. So my job as a product leader is to delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. This is the job. And there's a couple of balancing acts to this. The first is delight versus margin. So I'm going to give you, in 2005, if I talked to customers in focus groups, or if I was observing data in the Net Promoter Score, or any number of things, the number one thing that folks wanted was to get the new release DVD faster and easier. Movies would come out in a theater, and 3 months later, they'd be available on DVD. And a lot of people had to wait a week, or 2, or 3, or 4 weeks to get that new DVD. It was hard. So we did what we did. We had about 1 million customers, and we created a test cell with tens of thousands of folks. And if you were in that test cell, you had a perfect new release experience. That new release DVD would show up the next day in the mail. And back then, about 4.5% of our customers canceled each month. That was our measure for delight. And it nominally improved retention, all the way down to only 4.45% cancel. It made the service just a little bit better. But if you looked at the cost of providing that service, it's expensive to buy all these new release DVDs that people won't really want to watch 3 months later. And we had a balancing act for how to do this. We were willing to spend up to $200 per customer for every customer that we saved. That was twice the lifetime value of a customer, which was $100. The reason that we doubled that was to essentially to double down on delight. The theory was if that service was even better, you would rave about it to a friend, and that person would come into the service for free. If you did the math on this, it was going to cost us $500 to save a customer. Or another way of saying this, it did not delight customers enough for them to achieve real value from it. So this is that first balancing act. And the second, it was kind of cute. I'd have a product manager come to me with a new visual design on the non-member site. That's the front door of the site. And I said, that's great. It got better. He showed me the data. And I said, I'm going to give you super bonus points if you do things that frickin' Blockbuster can't copy within a month. So the idea is to give a lot of extra value to the things that are hard to copy. So think in your head for a second about what's hard to copy about what Netflix does today. And I'll give you my framework. The first is the brand. The second, there's substantial network effect today. Every television that you buy today is ready to stream Netflix. Any mobile device, any game system. And then there's lots of unique technology. The technology that I'm most excited about is personalization. It is very hard to understand the member taste of 130 million people worldwide. And then I'm guessing a lot of you were thinking original content is hard to copy. That is born out of a huge economy of scale. When you have 130 million, you can afford to spend 300 million to do a season of The Crown. Netflix is investing forward $8 billion. You can only do that when you have 130 million members in your universe. So here are all the theories about what Netflix could do. This is back in 2005 over the next 10 years. That would be at this intersection, the trifecta of delight, hard to copy, and help build the business. And I want you to think for a second about what % of time did Netflix get it right? Seems like a great product, a great company. Maybe there's smart people there. And now I'm going to share the answer. We got it right about half the time. In fact, exactly half, because that original content, we tested it in 2007, and it didn't work. We didn't have that economy of scale. But in 2013, how many have watched House of Cards? It worked, all right? So we got it right half the time. And this was this experiment of a culture. And so I'll give you the big secret of Netflix success. High cadence failure, lots of it. No matter if these tests worked or failed, there was always tons of learning that we applied to the future. So now I'm going to take you on my second chapter, if you will. This is all about consumer science, this legacy that Reed works to leave with folks. It's really the scientific method. Form a hypothesis, you get lots of data about whether it works or not, and you have new hypothesis, and eventually you get better and smarter. And for me, I stayed very focused on really 4 inputs for the consumer insight. And my main learning is you have to treat it as a portfolio. So each of these inputs has got substantial strength and weakness. The existing data tells you a lot about the past. And then today, I got lots of ideas from qualitatives, from focus groups, from talking with customers, from one-on-ones, from usability. And I gave you an example today of the Net Promoter Survey, and it's true that Netflix survey, NPS was in the high 70s. And the big dog at Netflix was A/B test, the final arbiter, the only way that you could get at this balancing act of delight and margin. So I'm going to take you on a journey about how Netflix learned about personalization. So this is what the home site looked like in 2005. And if you look carefully, you'll notice that's entirely editorially driven. There is nothing personalized with the exception of the one word recommendations, which nobody clicked on. Okay? Recommendation is a very bad word. Suggestion might be a better word, or here, I have an idea of something you might like. Recommendation is too prescribed. So when we started to think about it, we sort of said, okay, what's our overall strategy for personalization? And we said, okay, the first goal is to get all of the data we can get about your movie taste in explicit ways. We are going to ask you. We will ask you to rate movies. The second, we imagine the future where you'd all be streaming, and we would simply watch what you chose to watch or didn't. That's the implicit data. And then the magic was, if we know all of your member tastes, and we know all the data about movies, we'll magically connect these two with these algorithms and different presentation layer techniques. This simple design. A little progress here. And here, we're beginning to say, okay, how the heck do we get the member tastes? So it was a simple, you just returned the DVD, Fast Food Nation. We ask you to rate it, and we'll instantly give you 2 suggestions based on that data. Worked a teeny bit. The real insight was up here, that freaking Movies You'll Heart tab, which all the design team said was fugly. And I think fugly is a combination of funky and ugly, okay? But for whatever reason, it attracted our customers in extraordinary ways. And the idea was born, we called it the rating wizard. The more that you rate, the better we'll help you to find movies you'll love. And we said one other thing, it'll only take a minute. And this was the fuel of getting explicit data from our members. And I'll show you. This is, every A/B test was working to move the metric. The metric was in the first 6 weeks of a customer's life. And we cared a lot about new members. If you're trying to grow from 1 million to 130 million, you got to be focused on the newbies. And you can see that by 2009, about 25% of members, new members in their first 6 weeks, had given us at least 50 ratings, 50, an extraordinary number that fueled the personalization system. So I have a pop quiz for you. This is my family. Kelsey is 22, Brittany is 20. And my question is, in trying to create a personalization system, oh, and Kristen and I are in our 50s somewhere, okay? The question is, would it help Netflix to know our age and gender? Would demographics fuel the personalization system? So how many of you believe that getting the demographic data will help Netflix to better choose your movies? How many believe it's a helpful input? High in the air, demographics. How many believe the opposite? Wow. Okay. So how many of you have arms? It was about 60% say demographic data is important. It turns out it's not. It's not helpful. Big surprise. And our first thing, because we get the demographic data, and in A/B test, it was straightforward. We got it. 90% of our customers were willing to give age and gender. But when we fed that data into the algorithm system, it didn't give us more insight. How did we know? This is called RMSE. If you watched a movie, we thought it was going to be 5 stars, and you rated it 5 stars, we were perfect. If we thought you'd rate a movie 3 stars, you gave it 3 stars, perfect. That would be an RMS of 0. So this is one of these things. The lower that RMSE gets over time, the better. And in this case, we tested it, and that demographic data did not enable better predictions. That was a surprise to all of us. So I'm going to talk a little about one of the more important algorithms, the matching. We have your data. We understand the movies. It's called collaborative filtering. It was called Cinematch. And the real surprise to us, this is called the Q-add activation lever. It's called the Quackle. Okay? And if you added a title to your queue, we would magically suggest a bunch of other titles that were similar to it. In collaborative filtering, if you like movie A and B, and you like movie A and B, and you like C, then we think you'll like C. That's how collaborative filtering works. And it was one of our first successes. However, the problem with collaborative filtering is it doesn't know anything about the movies. So you get some odd things like, we think you'll like Guys and Balls because you liked Icon. There's no context to this, no explanation of why you will like a movie. There's another little problem at the time. We only had 2 engineers working on the collaborative filtering problem, so we crowdsourced it. We said, hey, community of developers, we'll give you $1 million if you can improve our collaborative filtering. And it was called the Netflix Prize. And if you can improve RMSE by at least 10%, we'll give you the money. And 2 years later, we gave the money. And we developed a number of insights. And you can get a sense of one of the key insights. Look at the team of the winners. Belcour's pragmatic chaos. What had happened is there was a team in second and third. At the last minute, they combined all of their forces, all the algorithms together, and they jumped to the front. And the key insight was the more algorithms that you combine, the better the predictive power for guessing what movies you'll love. Just by the way, I just love that Team 5 was Vandelay Industries, for any of the Seinfeld fans. So we put the new algorithm into A/B test to see if this better algorithm would improve retention. It didn't. Okay? Bummer. Okay? And the main insight was you have to do work with algorithms and design, the stuff that folks can see, to really move the big dog, which is retention. Multiple algorithms is better. Our friends over at Pandora in Oakland were doing something called the Music Genome Project. They had 80 musicologists tagging all the movies on different attributes. Jack Johnson is a folksy surfing dude. That's what his music about. I like Jack Johnson. And we hired 40 movieologists down in LA. Great job. Okay? And the job was to tag the various attributes of all these different movies, so we could now provide much more context of why you'll like a movie. So because of your interest in Finding Nemo, we think you'll like Dumbo and Tigger. That makes sense. So with this new category interest algorithm, we were able to give lots more context to help you decide what you want. This was a very successful experiment. So time is going on at Netflix. Our job was to make it easy for you to find movies you'll love. And our metric for making it easy to find was, did we enable a member to add at least 6 DVDs to their queue, that's how Americans pronounce it, each month. And you could see it grew over time. And then it started dipping. Why did it dip? Yeah, I can hear it. Streaming? In fact, we launched streaming in January 2007 with 300 really sucky movies. Okay? And you can see over time the metric there was percentage of members who watched at least 15 minutes. The smallest TV episode that existed. And you can see it's game time as streaming moves on. And with game time, we finally got to do what was wanted. You're no longer burdened by that damn DVD by mail system, and Netflix expanded internationally. So second pop quiz in personalization. Does it help the algorithm to know that someone's French? Or they live in Tasmania? Or they're Polish? How many believe it helps to predict movie tastes if you know you're French? We've got a lot of hands. We've got a lot of people with arms. Cool. How many believe it will not improve the algorithm? Well, we've got some wonderful consumer insights. So the answer is, it turns out it's not helpful to know that you're French. That all of our movie tastes, just as Kelsey and my tastes in our family aren't informed by age or gender, doesn't matter where you live. Fascinating that Netflix knows this. Something odd happened. Here's the company that's created the 5-star system and has collected hundreds of billions of star ratings. And I don't know if you noticed, but they switched to frickin' things thumbs up and thumbs down. As the company went international, and Facebook had created this metaphor, a very simple gesture, easy to pick. They said, gosh, maybe we should A/B test this. And it doubled the number of explicit movie taste data points from you. That's really interesting. Now, what happens to the damn star system? So there was a theory early at Netflix that we would improve retention, your experience, if we helped you to find better movies. More 5-star movies like Schindler's List, and less 3-star leave your brains at the door Adam Sandler movies. That was the theory, except there was no data to support it. So the system has changed. If you look, today, Casino is a 98% match for me. It's not saying anything about the quality of the movie. And it turns out that if our job was to create movie enjoyment, that people actually like an Adam Sandler leave their brains at the door experience. It improves their enjoyment. And it was a really surprising insight along the way. So if you think about personalization here, it's really remarkable to me. In the early days, there were 100,000 DVDs, and the job was to help you to find one. And then when we launched streaming, we had very few good choices, and we were trying to help you find the one out of 600 sucky choices. And then today, what's remarkable, when you know the movie tastes of 130 million people worldwide, it informs how you make that $8 billion spend on original content. It gives you a lot of insight about what people would like to watch or not. And it's given this wonderful hard-to-copy advantage to the company. So personalization is an example of hitting the trifecta of delighting you in these hard-to-copy. The business works when people enjoy all of that original content. So I told you that Netflix needs your help. Here's the question. Today, folks come to the site, and it's all about clicking the red button to start a 30-day free trial. And in that trial, you give your credit card, and the question is, at the end of 30 days, should Netflix send you a notification? Should it let you know on your personalized homepage that you're about to start paying? Should they send you an email? And Netflix did a test to do all of those things. By the way, how many of you think this is a good idea? Right now. How many think it's a bad idea? How many have arms? All right, let me give you a little data. So the existing data, it's the customer support data. Turns out there's a lot of phone calls, and that costs time and money, of folks calling in on 32 saying, I didn't realize that my 1-month free trial was up. And Netflix did the right thing. It backed out the charges. That's where the idea came from. And in focus groups, I know there's a couple of folks in the room that are not members. They're called fence sitters, okay? And they've heard of the Netflix brand. I know Markham's one of the people in the room, and I know he doesn't watch a lot of TV and movies, but he said because of Black Mirror, he's going to join. But the idea was, from focus groups, the key important idea is you can cancel any time. It de-risks it. And I'll give you a little bit of data. Trial to visit conversion. Anybody want to guess what percentage of folks will hit the red button to start the free trial? It's a number between 0 and 100. Okay? How many, anybody want to throw out a number? How many? 80. Okay, this is my youthful enthusiasts in the room. Or do we have any curmudgeons? 8. Okay? 5, 12. So it's in the 2 to 4% range. Surprisingly low. I think what happens is they get in and say, oh, wait, free? You want my credit card? Or it's dinner, okay? Jasmine says, Dad, let's eat. Month 1 retention. At the end of that 1 month free trial, what percent of folks go on to become paying customers? Again, between 0 and 100. And again, it will surprise you. Numbers. No, I heard that's the best guess. It is about 90% right out of the gate. Okay? It's a wonderful experience. So now you A/B test it. How many believe that customer behavior is going to change because of this notification that your free trial is almost up? How many believe it will affect members? How many believe it won't? Huh, interesting. Okay, so it does change customers' behavior. It causes fewer people to go on to the service. Anybody want to guess? It's not 90. What number is it? 90% become a paid subscriber. Now, because of the notification, what's the new number going to be? That's great. Great, great, great. I heard a 40 and I heard an 89. It's about 85%. So you lose some money. And I'll tell you exactly how much you lose. You lose $50 million because of this. Okay? And there's one other thing that happens is you save the $5 million because people aren't answering the damn phone calls anymore. So this is a $45 million decision. How many want to do it? How many don't want to do it? Oh, fascinating. Why do you want to do this? It's the right thing to do. Other reasons. I'm hearing it. So in this model of delighting customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways, delight, I think this feels good to me. Margin, we've already said it's going to cost $45 million. And what's the hard-to-copy thing? It's the brand. Wow. So at Netflix, that is the other issue. It's how do we think about the brand? And at Netflix, this is an easy decision. There's the product manager for the non-member site, and she gets to make the decision. You guys are probably curious what they did. How many want to launch? How many don't want to launch? I could see the vote changed as you started thinking more about the brand. Like, wow, it would really be impressive to me if Netflix did this. I feel great about the service. So she chose to launch. So here are the learnings from this. This is a great example of essentially doubling down on delight. So you're losing a lot of money, but you're delighting customers, and you have a long-term issue of building a brand. And there is a cost to ethics. In this case, it's $45 million, and to the brand. And there's a lot of things you can't measure here. And this is one of the downsides of A/B testing. How do we measure that brand goodness? How do we know if those few people that chose not to go because of the cancel notification didn't come back in 2 or 3 months? And this is why judgment and consumer insight is required in making all of these decisions, even when you have all the data. And the other thing about the Netflix culture, it's a vigorous environment of debate, decide, and do. So I know that this was a richly debated topic, and at the end of the day, the product manager for the non-member experience, she made the decision what to do, and everything went forward. I'll tell you one thing, which when presented with this idea, the CFO, the $45 million to him, like no big deal. At this point, the company is $8 billion in revenues. All right, there's one last thing that's required on this journey of customer obsession, of consumer science. Patience. So this is the market cap of Netflix over 20 years, from that really crappy 1990 experience to today. You can say it takes a lot of time to figure this stuff out, to build enough consumer insight to make these great decisions about what will delight your customers. So I have a juicy quote for you. I love reading anything Jeff Bezos does. We've had 3 big ideas at Amazon that we've stuck with for 18 years. Put the customer first, invent, and be patient. But the most important thing, focus obsessively on the customer. So I have a bit of a checklist for you. Are you obsessed? Does your company have a set of metrics that provide a lens of data to everything you do and help everybody learn about what drives the business and how to predict customer behavior? Do you engage in monthly qualitative work and focus groups, usability, one-on-ones with customers that don't live in fricking Silicon Valley because they are not normal people? Okay? Do you have survey data? Do you know what your Net Promoter Score is? And you should be delighted if it's 78. Do you understand the demographic of your customers? Can you assess quality? Netflix knows every time there's a bad encode because you've been surveyed. And do you have a system of testing and learning where you can engage and understand the balancing act between delight and margin? And this is last, and it is among the most important, which is, do you have a strategy? Do you have hypotheses about ideas that you believe in the long term will help delight customers in these hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways? So with that, I'd like to say thank you to everyone in the room.